Hi, welcome back to Interactive Media. We are going to continue with the design sprint exercise today, and we'll be focusing on day 3, which is the big decide day. So let me go ahead and switch over and we will get started. Right. So first things first, since there's been some time since we last all been together, and the last time you've probably spoken to your teammates have been a couple days ago maybe, let's go ahead and get back together with your groups and reshare essentially your individual ideas that you drew out. So everything that we put up for our art gallery is what we want to put up now, and then this will allow everyone to kind of get a refresh of what they drew and what other people drew and just the way to move forward with the solution. So go ahead and do that. So to refresh your memory, when sharing your ideas, make sure everyone's ideas are actually hung up on a wall and everybody stands up, and each designer will present their design work essentially between 3 and 5 minutes, and the team, like the rest of the design team, they can ask any questions they want, but just make sure you kind of time bucket it to those 3 to 5 minutes because we want to make sure to move quickly and get everyone's perspective shared. So now that we've had an opportunity to refresh our memory on our design ideas and the ways we want to move forward, the next thing we'll work on are assumptions and our sprint questions. So after each person presents their solution, after you've done this as a group, you should go through together as a group and start outlining different assumptions that have been made to actually make the idea feasible. So make sure you restate them as questions as well that you want to answer. So let's take this example. I've made up this app that I use for my teaching examples, where it's a running app where 2 people can run together, but in different cities, and they can see maps of where they're running, and they can also take photos, kind of like Instagram, and it tags them based on their route, and they can see each other's runs. So it's just a friend-to-friend type of network. So the assumption I'm working on is that people actually want to do this. People actually want to schedule a run date with a friend who does not live in the same city, make an assumption that people will carry their smartphones while they're running. I'm also making an assumption that these people want to share information while they run with each other, and they'll kind of periodically check in during their runs and look at the app. A way to rephrase those assumptions as a question is that, do people even want to schedule a run with their friends? Do people see running together digitally the same as running together physically? Do people maintain the same relationships over time when they're running in person versus running using an app? So those are a few ideas that I can give you, but go ahead and go through your design concepts as a group and mark down any assumptions you may have made, but then make sure to rephrase them as questions. So go ahead and give that a try. Okay, so now that you've come up with all the assumptions and the questions that you need answered in order to move forward with your project, let's, as a group, take all of these different questions that you want to answer, so all these different sticky notes, and we will start organizing it in such a way that groups like ideas together. And then what I'll need you to do is actually to decide on the top 3 specific questions that you want to answer. So you might have, for my example, you might have a group of questions and assumptions around sharing content, and another one's more about relationship building, and then the other one's just about the logistics of carrying your phone while you're running. But from there, you can take any 3 of these questions that most resonate with you as a group, and make sure you prioritize them in 1, 2, 3. So like the first thing, the most important thing that I want to focus on, and then the second most important, and then the third most important. But make sure you do that as a group and that you all agree on these 3 things. And in any case, your team leader will always be the tiebreakers and the ultimate decider. So if there is an issue coming towards a consensus on which direction to go, your team leader will be the person to break that tie. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is heat map voting. And what we do is on these sketches that we've created, what we need to do is now take a bunch of voting dots, so everyone gets not like an unlimited amount of dots, but just a fair amount. There's no like quantity limit really. And you take as many dots as you need to vote on the parts of the sketches and the ideas that everyone likes. So everyone gets dots, everyone gets to vote. If you really like individual ideas, make sure you put the dot on that idea. If you like the overall concept altogether, you can vote on top, but at this point is not as helpful. What we want to do is kind of triangulate the questions you want to answer and the components within the sketches, and hopefully combine them all into this new product that you're going to make for our next session. So while you're voting on each other's sketches and your own, make sure you review the design problem that's been established. So the big dominoes question of like, how can we help groups of people order food before they're hangry? That was our design sprint prompt. Make sure you reference all the research that you've done and the questions to answer before you start voting. So make sure everyone has all that information ready to go. Remember that this is kind of a group deciding vote. So if someone is absent, then they essentially abstained from voting and they can't vote retroactively. But the votes that you put down here will essentially count towards the product that's being built. So it's really important to think critically and to speak honestly here. And our team leaders need to remind this team that it is a deciding vote. It's not just putting stickers on nilly-willy because we like stickers. It's about voting on the ideas and the components that are best. Okay, so now that everyone has had an opportunity to vote on ideas and to put their sticky dots on the sketches on the wall, now we need everybody to stand up and kind of sit back and to review this heat map of voting dots. So a heat map essentially will show different trends of density of voting dots in this case. Heating maps they still are, but generally it's like mouse tracking and seeing kind of trends of where people hover their mouse cursor and where they look for long periods of time. So some places are hot, meaning there's a lot of activity there, and some places are cool, meaning not a lot of people go there. But what we want to do is look at kind of the density of voting dots that live on these different screens that have been drawn across these 5 or 6 different concepts. And here, as a group, is where you need to select and commit to a direction. So which components or features in each of these sketches do you want to keep working on and you want to further develop? Which ones do you definitely want to discard? What will the customer journey look like? What screen do they first start on, and then what happens? And then what happens after that? This is also a time to review your decisions and to reapply it back to our sprint question. Are you going to meet the project requirements? So there were 2 requirements. Essentially, you have to design a digital app or a digital website, and then the second requirement was that you need to be able to order the pizza. So not like in real life, you're not gonna have a pizza come every single time you test the prototype. But the point of the thing that you design is that someone can actually place an order. So make sure it meets those product requirements. Before you vote, before you make this final vote, make sure that you again review the design criteria and the design prompt and all your research and the questions that you have. And then what you need to do is then select and commit to a direction. So after today, there isn't any question about, oh, I think the flow of registration is really bad and it should go all the way at the beginning. Or actually, I don't like the pizza topper tool. I feel like people should be able to just select the toppings first. So after today, there is no debate about the direction of the design, the basic structure, the basic flow. Today is the day that you make that decision and then you commit to it. So if there is a tie or any conflicts in opinions or very strong heated differences in opinions, then your team leader is the decider. So the responsibility is on them because we've established that they are a person of authority in this kind of business space. Okay? So now what you want to do is actually share this information out as a group. So if you're doing this online, make sure you post the information. If you're doing it in person, then this is the time when everyone gets a chance to see all the different sketches, and the team lead gets to articulate the final vision of how they want to pursue the product design before they actually start moving like pixel to screen. Okay, so now that we've done that, your next set of homework is actually going to be your day 4 sprint activities. And I don't have a formal session set up for this because it's something you naturally already do. We don't actually need time to explain it. And it's essentially, you're going to start designing it. So your objective is to start building your design prototype. My tips for you is to design in whatever software you feel comfortable right now, something that allows you to move quickly. The second thing is to make sure you set up an established style guide or screen dimensions. So essentially, like, are you designing for mobile? Are you designing for desktop? Specifically, what screen size are you designing? What's the pixel density? How tall should a header be? How tall should all the icons be? What are the color strategies? Make sure you define all that up front first before everyone goes off and does their individual designs. It becomes a little bit more difficult to stitch them back together when screen sizes are different and everyone's used a different font and all the colors are the wrong shade of blue or the wrong shade of red. So first off, make the designs, make them consistent. From there, you will actually export or sync your designs with a tool that we'll use for prototyping. That's called Marvel. If you go to marvelapp.com, you can set up a free account and take a tutorial and get started. We can also do a demo in class if we haven't already, or I can film a demo here. But make sure you create your clickable prototype using Marvel. So that's the software we'll be using for that. It's one of the most easiest ones. That's why I want us to start with that first. And when we return to continue on to our next day, which will be day 5, make sure that your prototype works flawlessly. So don't just test it on your computer because you're building it on your computer. If you're building it for a phone, then make sure you test on someone else's phone and make sure all the assets fit. If you're designing for desktop, try it on a different desktop. So if you have a Mac, try to get it on a PC. If you have a PC, try to get it on a Mac. That'll give you an opportunity to troubleshoot any like big major issues before we come back and actually conduct usability studies in class. Last thing is to make your designs as realistic as possible. So essentially, how would this launch in the App Store, or how would this look like if someone typed in www.dominos.com? Make sure you use real words. Make sure none of your images are watermarked. No lorem ipsum. Everything that lives on the screen is essentially what I would see if I was using the real app or the real website today. Okay, so that's what we have for day 4, and that also that ends kind of day 3 as well. So I will see you back for day 5, where we get to learn more about how people use the product that you've just designed. All right, have a good one.